Chapter 20. The first task. Harry got up on Sunday morning, dressed up so tentatively that it was a while before he realized he was trying to pull his hat onto his foot instead of his socks. When he had finally got all his clothes on the right part of his body, he hurried off to find Hermione, pocketing her at the Gryffindor table in the Great Hall, where she was eating breakfast with Ginny. Feeling too queasy to eat, Harry waited until Hermione had swallowed her last spoonful of porridge, then dragged her out onto the ground. There he told her all about the dragons and about everything Cyrus had said. While they took another long walk around the lake, alarmed as she was by Cyrus' warning about Karkrov, Hermione still thought that the dragons were the more pressing problem. Let's just try to keep you alive until Thursday evening, she said desperately, and then we can worry about Karkrov. They walked 3 times around the lake, trying all the way to think of a simple spell that could subdue a dragon. Nothing whatsoever occurred to them, so they retired to the library instead. Here, Harry pulled down every book he could find on dragon, and both of them set to work searching through the stars by Alan flipping by chance. Greetings, Cartrod. This is no good. This is for letters like Hagrid who want to keep them healthy. Dragons are extremely difficult to slay, owing to the ancient magic that imbues their thick hide, which none out but most powerful spell can be treated. But Cyrus has said a simple one will do it. Let's try some simple spell book, then, said Harry, throwing aside men who love dragon too much. He returned to the table with a pile of spell books, set them down, and began to flick through each the turn. Hermione whispered non-stop at his elbow. Well, there are switching spell, but what the point of switching it unless you swapped it fang for a wine gum or something? That would make it less dangerous. The trouble is, like that book said, not much is going to get through a dragon's hide. I had said transfigurate it at something that big. You really haven't got a hope. I doubt even Professor McGonagall, unless you are supposed to put a spell on yourself. Maybe to give yourself extra power, but they are not simple spell. I mean, I haven't done any of those in class. I only know about them because I have been doing owl practice paper. Hermione, Harry said through gritted teeth. Will you shut up for a bit, please? I'm trying to concentrate. But all that happened when Hermione fell silent was that Harry's brain filled with a sort of blank buzzing. This didn't seem to allow room for concentration. He stared hopelessly down the index of basic access for the very busy and had instead scalping. But the dragon had no ear paper breed that would probably increase a dragon's fire paper burn tongue. Just what he needed to give it an extra weapon. Oh no, he's back again. Why can't he read on the stupid ship? Said Hermione, irritable, as Victor Crumb slouched in, cast a sternly look over the pair of them, and settled himself in a distant corner with the pile of books. Come on, Harry, we'll go back to the common room. His fan club will be there in a moment, wittering away, and short of enough. As they left the library, a gang of girls tiptoed past them, one of them wearing a Bulgarian scarf tied around her waist. Harry barely slept that night. When he woke up on Monday morning, he seriously considered for the first time ever just running away from Hogwarts. But as he looked around the great hall at breakfast time and thought about the leaving the castle would mean, he knew he couldn't do it. It was the only place he had ever been happy. Well, he supposed he must have been happy with his parents. He couldn't remember that. Somehow, the knowledge that he would rather be there and facing a dragon than back on private drive with Dudley was good to know. It made him feel slightly calmer. He finished his bacon and difficulty his throat wasn't working too well. And as he and Hermione got up, he saw Cedric Diggory leaving the Hufflepuff table. Cedric still didn't know about dragons, the only champion who didn't. If Harry was right in thinking that Magazine and Karkaroff would have told Fleur and Crumb, Hermione, I'll see you in a greenhouse, said Harry, coming to his decision as he watched Cedric leaving the hall. Go on, I'll catch you up. Harry, you'll be late. The bell will about to ring. I'll catch you up, okay? By the time Harry reached the bottom of the marble staircase, Cedric was at the top. He was with a lot of 60-year friends. Harry didn't want to talk to Cedric in front of them. They were among those who had been quoting Rita Seeker's article at him every time he went near them. He followed Cedric at a distance and saw that he was heading toward the charm corridor. This gave Harry an idea. Pausing at a distance from them, he pulled out his wand and looked carefully in different door. Cedric's bag spilled, parchment quill and books spilled out of into the floor. Several bottles of ink smashed. Don't bother, said Cedric in an exasperated voice as his friend bent down to help him. Tell Flitwick I'm coming, go on. This was exactly what Harry had been hoping for. He slipped his wand back into his robe, waited until Cedric's friend had disappeared into their classroom, and hurried up the corridor, which was now empty of everyone but himself and Cedric. Hi, said Cedric, picking up a copy of a guide, an advanced figure that was now splattered with ink. My bag just got split, brand new. No, Cedric, said Harry. The first task is dragon. What? Said Cedric, looking up. Dragon, said Harry, speaking quickly, in case Professor Flitwick came out to see where Cedric had got to. They have got four, one for each of us, and we have got to get past them. Cedric stared at him. Harry saw some of the panic he had been feeling since Saturday night, flicking the Cedric's grey eyes. Are you sure? Cedric said in the hushed voice. Dead sure, said Harry. I have seen them. How did you find out? You're not supposed to know. Never mind, said Harry quickly. He knew Hagrid would be in trouble if he told the truth. But I'm not the only one who knows. Fleur and Crump, well known by now. Maxim and Carcrow both saw the dragons too. Cedric straightened up, his arm full of inky quills, parchment, and books. His ripped back dangling off one shoulder. He stared at Harry, and there was a puzzled, almost suspicious look in his eyes. Why are you telling me? He asked. Harry looked at him in a disbelief. He was sure Cedric wouldn't have asked that if he had seen the dragon himself. Harry wouldn't have let his worst enemy face those monsters unprepared. Well, perhaps Malfoy or Snape. It's just fair, isn't it? He said to Cedric. We all know now we are on even footing, aren't we? Cedric was still looking at him in a slightly suspicious way. When Harry heard a familiar chunk of voice behind him, he turned around and saw Madame Moody emerging from nearby classroom. Come with me, Potter, he said, growled. Degree, off you go. Harry stared apprehensively at Moody. Had I overheard them? Professor, I'm supposed to be in herbology. Never mind that, Potter. In my office, please. Harry followed him, wondering what was going to happen to him now. What if Moody wanted to know he had found out about dragons? Would Moody go to Dumbledore and tell on Hagrid? Or just turn Harry into ferret? Well, it might be easier to get past a dragon if he weren't a ferret. Harry thought dully. He had been smaller, much less easy to see from height of 50 feet. He followed Moody into his office. Moody closed the door behind them and turned to look at Harry, his magical eye fixed upon him as well as the normal one. That was a very decent thing you just did, Potter, Moody said quietly. Harry didn't know what to say. This wasn't the reaction he had expected at all. Sit down, said Moody, and Harry sat down. Looking around, he had visited this office under two of its previous occupants in Professor Lockhart's day. The wall had been plastered with beaming, wrinkled picture of Professor Lockhart himself. When Lupin had lived here, you were more likely to come across the specimen of some fascinating new dark creature he had pursued for them to study in class. Now, however, the office was full of number of exceptionally odd objects that Harry supposed Moody had used in the day when he had been an oral. On his desk stood what looked like a large black glass spinning top. Harry recognized it at once as the snake telescope because he owned one himself, though it was much smaller than Moody's. Corner on the small table stood an object that looked something like an extra squiggle golden television. Ariel, it was humming slightly. What appeared to be a mirror hung opposite Harry on the wall, but it was not reflecting the room. Shadowy figures were moving around inside it, none of them clearly in focus. Like my dark dictator, do you? Said Moody, who was watching Harry closely. What's that? Harry asked, pointing at the squeaky golden Ariel. Secrecy sensor vibrate when it detects concealment and lies. No use here, of course, too much interference. Student in every direction lying about why they haven't done their homework, been humming ever since I have got there. I had to disable my snake scope because it wouldn't stop whistling. It's extra sensitive. Pick up stuff about a mile around, of course, it would be picking up more than kid stuff. He added in a groan. And what the mirror for? Oh, that's my fourth class. See them out there sculling around. I'm not really in trouble until I see the white of their eyes. That's when I open my trunk. He let out a short, harsh laugh and pointed to a large trunk under the window. It had 7 keyholes in a row. Harry wondered what was in there until Moody's next question brought him sharply back to earth. So, found out about the dragon, have you? Harry hesitated. He had been afraid of his, but he hadn't told Cedric, and he certainly wasn't going to tell Moody that Hagrid had broken the rules. It's all right, said Moody, sitting down and stretching out his wooden leg with a groan. Cheating is a traditional part of Triwizard tournament and always has been. I didn't cheat, said Harry sharply. It was a sort of accident that I found out. Moody grinned. I wasn't accusing you, lady. I have been telling Dumbledore from the start he can be a high-minded as he likes, but you can get old Harcroft and Maxim won't be. They have told their champions everything they can. They want to win. They want beat Dumbledore. They had like to prove he is only human. Moody gave another harsh laugh, and his magical eyes swung around so fast it made Harry feel squeaky to watch it. So, got any idea how you are going to get past your dragon yet? Said Moody. No, said Harry. Well, I'm not going to tell you, said Moody gruffly. I don't show favoritism. Me. I am just going to give you some good general advice. The first, beat it. Play to your strength. I haven't got any, said Harry. Before he could stop himself, excuse me, growled Moody. You have got strength if I say you got them? Think now. What are you best at? Harry tried to concentrate. What was the best at? Well, that was easy really. Courage, he said dully. A fat lot of hell. That's right, said Moody, staring at him very hard. His magical eye barely moved at all. You are a damn good flyer from what I have heard. Yeah, but Harry stared at him. I am not allowed a broom. I have only got my wand. My second piece of general advice, said Moody loudly, interrupting him, is to use a nice simple spell that will enable you to get what you need. Harry looked at him blankly. What did he need? Come on, boy, whispered Moody. Put them together. It's not that difficult. And it clicked. He was best at flying. He needed to pass the dragon in a year. For that, he needed his firebolt. And for his firebolt, he needed harmony, Harry whispered when he started spent into greenhouse 3 minutes later, uttering a hurried apology to Miss Professor Sprout, and he passed it her. Hermione, I need your help. What do you think I have been trying to do, Harry? She whispered back, her eyes around with anxiety over the top of whirling flutterby bus she was pruning. Harmony, I need to learn how to do summoning charm properly by tomorrow afternoon. And so they practiced. They didn't have lunch, but headed for a free classroom where Harry tried with all might to make various objects fly across the room toward him. He was still having problems. Book and quill kept losing hard halfway across the room and dropping like stone to the floor. Concentrate, Harry. Concentrate. What do you think I'm trying to do? Said Harry angrily. Great big dragon keep popping up in my head for some reason. Okay, try again. He wanted to skip deviation to keep practicing, but Hermione refused point blank to skive off Harry's mercy, and there was no point in staying without her. He therefore had to endure over and Professor Travanby, who spent half an hour the lesson telling everyone that the position of Mars with relation to Saturn at that moment meant that people born in July were in a great danger of a sudden violent death. Well, that's good, said Harry loudly, his temper getting the better of him. Just as long as it's not drowned out, I don't want to suffer. Ron looked for a moment as though he was going to laugh. He certainly caught Harry's eye for the first time in a day. But Harry was still feeling so resentful toward Ron to care. He spent the rest of the lesson trying to attract small objects toward him under the table. With his wand, he managed to make a fly zoom straight into his hand, though he wasn't entirely sure what was his powers at summoning charm. Perhaps the fly was just stupid. He forced down some dinner after deviation, then returned to the empty classroom with Hermione. Using the invisibility clock to avoid teachers, they kept practicing until past midnight. They would have stayed longer, but Pew stood up and, pretending to think that Harry wanted things thrown at him, started chucking chairs across the room. Harry and Hermione left in the hurry before the noise attracted Fletch and went back to the Gryffindor common room, which was now mercifully empty. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Harry stood near the fireplace surrounded by a heap of objects book, quills, several armchair, an old set of Hopstone and Neville Stodd. Trevor. Only in the last 4 hours Harry really got hang on Simon Cham. That's better, Harry, that's lots better. Hermione said, looking exhausted but very pleased. Well, now we know what to do next time. I can't manage spell, Harry said, throwing a ruler dictionary back to Hermione so he could try again. Threatening me with a dragon, right? He raised his wand and once more. SEO dictionary. The heavy book soared out of the Hermione's hand, flew across the room, and Harry caught it. Harry, I really think you have got it, said Hermione delightedly. Just as long as it worked tomorrow, Harry said. Rather than the stuff in here, it's going to be the in the castle. I'm going to be out there on the ground. That doesn't matter, said Hermione firmly. Just as long as you're concentrating really, really hard on it, it will come. Harry, we had better get some sleep. You're going to need it. Harry had been focusing so hard on learning the summoning charm that everything that some of his blind panic had left him. He returned in full measure. However, on the following morning, the atmosphere in the school was one of the great tension and excitement. Lessons were to stop at midday, giving all the students time to get down to the dragon's enclosure. Though, of course, they didn't yet know what they would find there. Harry felt oddly separated from everyone around him, whether they were wishing him good luck or hissing, well, have a box of tissues ready, Potter. was a state of nervousness so advanced that he wondered whether he might just lost his hand when they tried to lead him toward out of his dragon and started trying to curse everyone inside. Time was behaving in a more peculiar fashion than ever, rushing past in great dolor, so that one moment he seemed to be sitting down in his first lesson, history of magic, and the next walking into lunch, and then where had the morning gone? As last of the dragon-free hour, Professor McGonagall was hurrying over to him in the great hall. Lots of people were watching. Potter, the champions have to come down onto the ground now. You have to get ready for your first task. Okay, said Harry, standing up, his fork falling into the plate with a sharp clatter. Good luck, Harry, Hermione whispered. You'll be fine. Yes, said Harry in a voice that was almost unlike his own. He left the great hall with Professor McGonagall. She didn't seem herself either. In fact, she looked nearly as anxious as Hermione. As she walked him down the stone step and out into the cold November afternoon, she put her hand on his shoulder. Now don't panic, she said. Just keep a cool head. You've got wizards standing by to control the situation if it gets out of hand. The main thing is just to do your best and nobody will think any worse of you. Are you alright? Yes, Harry heard himself say yes, I'm fine. She was leading him toward the place where the dragons were around the edge of the forest, but when they approached the clump of trees behind which the enclosure would be clearly visible, Harry saw that a tent had been erected, its entrance facing them, screaming the dragon from you. You are to go in here with the other champions, said Professor McGonagall in a rather shaky sort of voice. And wait for your turn, Professor Potter. Mr. Bagman is here. He'll be telling you the procedure. Good luck. Thanks, said Harry in flat distant voice. She left him at the entrance of the tent. Harry went inside. Fleur Delacour was sitting in the corner on the low wooden stool. She didn't look nearly as composed as usual, but rather pale and calm. Victor Crumb looked even sluggish than usual, which Harry supposed was his way of showing nerve. Cedric was passing up and down. When Harry entered, Cedric gave him a small smile, which Harry returned, feeling the muscle in his face working rather hard as though they had forgotten how to do it. Harry, good, said Bagman happily, looking around at him. Come in, make yourself home. Bagman looked somehow like a slightly overblown cartoon figure standing amid all the pale-faced champions. He was wearing his old bab's robes again. Well, now you are all here. Time to fill you in, said Bagman brightly. When the audience has assembled, I'm going to be offering each of you this bag. He held up a small snack of purple silk and shook it at them, from which you will select a small model of things you are about to face. There are different varieties. You see, and I have to tell you something else too. Yes, your task is collect the golden egg. Harry glanced around. Cedric had nodded once to show that he understood Bagman's word and then started pacing around the tent again. He looked slightly green. Flora Delacora and Crump hadn't reacted at all. Perhaps they thought they might be sick if they opened their mouth. That was certainly how Harry felt, but they at last had volunteered for this, and in no time at all, hundred upon hundred of pairs of feet could be heard passing the tent, their owner talking excitedly, laughing, joking. Harry felt a separate from the crowd as though they were a different species, and then it seemed like about a second later to Harry. That man was opening the neck of the purple silk sack where his purse sat, putting it to Flora Delacour. She put a shaking hand inside the bag and drew out a tiny, perfect model of a dragon, a lush green. It had a number or two around its neck, and Harry knew by the fact that Flula showed no sign of surprise, but rather a determined resignation that he had been right. Madame Maxim had told her what was coming. The same held true of her Crumb. He pulled out the scarlet Chinese fireball. It had a number 3 around its neck. He didn't even blink. Just sat back down and started at the ground. Cedric put his hand into the bag and out of the bluish grey Sedwick short snot, the number 1 had around his neck. Knowing what was left, Harry put his hand into the silk bag and pulled out the Hungarian horntail and the number 4 had stretched its wing as he looked down at it and bared its muscular flank. Well, there you are, said Bagman. You have each pulled out the dragon you will face, and the number referred to the order in which you are to take on the dragon. Do you see? Now I'm going to have to leave you in a moment because I'm commenting. Mr. Degree, you are first. Just go out into the enclosure when you hear a whistle, alright? Now, Harry, could I have a quick word outside? Yes, said Harry blankly. And he got up and went out of the tent with Batman, who walked him a short distance away with the trees and then turned to him with a frightened expression on his face. Feeling all right, Harry? Anything I can get you? What? Said Harry. I know nothing. Got a plan, said Bagman, lowering his voice conspirationally. Because I don't mind sharing a few pointers if you like them, you know. I mean, Bagman continued, lowering his voice still further. You are the underdog here, said Harry. Anything I can do to help? No, said Harry. So quickly he knew he had sounded rude. No, I know what I am going to do, thanks. Nobody would know, Harry, said Bagman, winking at him. No, I am fine, said Harry, wondering why he kept telling people this and wondering whether he had ever been less fine. I have got a plan worked out. A whistle had blown somewhere. Good Lord, I have got to turn, said Bagman in alarm and hurried off. Harry walked back to the tent and saw Cedric emerging from it greener than ever. Harry tried to wish him luck as he walked past, but all that came out of his mouth was a sort of hoarse grunt. Harry went back into the floor and Crumb. Second later, they heard a roar of the crowd, which meant Cedric had entered the enclosure and was now face to face with a living counterpart of his model. It was worse than Harry would ever imagine. Sitting there and listening, the crowd screaming yelled, gasped like a single many-headed entity, and Cedric did whatever he was doing, go get past and swish short nod. Ram was still staring at the ground. Fleur had now taken to recreating Cedric's steps around and around the tent, and Bagman's commentary made everything much more worse. Horrible picture formed in Harry's mind as he heard, "Oh, narrow is there, very narrow. He's taking risk. This one, clever move. Pity it didn't work." And then after 50 minutes, Harry heard the deafening roar that could mean only one thing. Cedric had gotten past his dragon and captured the golden egg. Very good indeed, Bagman was shouting, and now the mark for the judges. But he didn't shout out the marks. Harry supposed the judges were holding them back and showing them to the crowd. One down, 3 to go. Batman yelled, and with the whistle blew. Miss Delacora, if you please. Laura was trembling from head to foot. Harry felt more warmly toward her than he had done so far as she left the tent with her head held right and her hand clutching her hand. He and Crumb were left alone at opposite of the tent, avoiding each other's gaze. The same process started again, though I'm not sure that was wise. They could hear Batman shouting gracefully, oh, nearly, carefully. Oh God, Lord, I thought she had it then. 10 minutes later, Harry heard the crowd erupt into applause once more. Flora must have been successful too. A pause while Flora marks were being snown. More clapping, then for the third time the whistle, and there here comes that big man, and Crumbs slouched out, having Harry quite alone. He felt much more aware of his body than usual, very aware of the way his heart was pumping fast and his finger twinkling with fear. Yet, by the time he seemed to be outside himself, seeing the wall of the tent and hearing the crowd as though from far away. Very daring, Bagman was yelling, and Harry heard the chilliness. Fireball emit a horrible roaring stink while the crowd drew its collective breath that some nerve he's showing, and yes, he's got the egg. Applause, shattered, wintry ear like breaking glass. Crumb had finished. It would be Harry's turn any moment. Well, it was a pretty cool bit of transfiguration, and it sort of worked because he did get the egg, but he got burned as well. The dragon changed its mind halfway through and decided it would rather have him than the Labrador. He only just got away, and that Flora girl tried to sort of charm. I think she was trying to put it into a trace. Well, that kind of worked too. It went all sleepy, but it snored and this giant jet of flames shot out and her skirt caught fire. She put it out with a bit of water out of her wand, and Crumb, you won't believe this, but he didn't even think of flying. He was probably the best after you, though hit it with some sort of spell right in the eye. Only thing is, it wasn't trampling around in agony and squashed half the real egg. They took mark of that. He wasn't supposed to do any damage to them. Ron drew breath as he and Harry reached the edge of the enclosure. That Horntail had been taken away. Harry could see where five judges were sitting right on the other end of the race seat wrapped in the golden. It's marked out of 10 from each one, Ron said. Harry, squatting up the field, saw the first judge, Madame Maxim, raise her wand in air. What looked like a long silver ribbon shot out of it, which twisted itself onto the large figure eight. Not that, said Ron, as crowd applauded. I suppose she took mark of you from your shoulder. Mr. Crouch came next. He shot a number of 9 into the air. Looking good, Ron yelled, thumping Harry on the neck. Dumbledore. He too put up 9. The crowd was cheering harder than ever. Ludo Bagman, 10. 10, said Harry in disbelief, but I got hurt. What's he pink at? Harry, don't complain, Ron yelled excitedly. And now, Pycroft raised his wand. He paused for a moment, and the number shot out of his wand to 4. What? Ron bellowed furiously. 4. You lazy biased scumbag, you gave Crumb 10. But Harry didn't care. He wouldn't have cared if Calcroft had given him 0. Ron's indignation on his behalf was worth about 100 points to him. He didn't tell Ron this, of course, but his heart felt lighter than air as he turned to leave enclosure. And it wasn't just Ron. Those weren't only Gryffindor cheering in the crowd. When it had come to it, when they had seen what he was facing, most of the school had been on his side as well as Cedric's. He didn't care about the Slytherins. He could stand wherever they threw at him now. You are tried the first place, Harry. You and Crumb, said Charlie Weasley, hurrying to meet them as they set off back toward the school. Listen, I have got to run. I have got to go to St. Mum an owl. I snored. I had tell her what happened, but that was unbelievable. Oh yeah, and they told me to tell you you have got a hang around for a few more minutes. Big man wanted a word back in the champion's tent. Ron said he would wait, so Harry returned the tent, which somehow looked quite different now, friendly and welcoming. He thought back and to how he felt while dogging the horntail and compared it to the long wait before he had walked out face. There was no comparison. The wait had been immensely worse. Fleur, Cedric, and Crumb all came in together. One side of Cedric face was covered in the thick orange paste, which was presumably amending his burn. He grinned at Harry when he saw him. Good one, Harry. And you, said Harry, grinning back. Well done, all of you, said Ludo Bigman, bouncing into the tent and looking as pleased as though he personally had just got past the dragon. Now, just a quiet few words. You have got a nice long break before a second task, which will take place at 9:30 on the morning of February the 24th. But we are giving you something to think about in the meantime. If you look down at your golden wig you are all holding, you will see that they open. See the hanging there. You need to solve the clue inside the ace because it will tell you what the second task is and enable you to prepare for it. All clear, sure? Well, off you go then. Harry Fair left the tent, rejoined Ron, and then started to walk back around the edge of the forest. Talking hard, Harry wanted to hear what the other champion had done in a more detail. Then, as he rounded the clump of tree behind which Harry had first heard the dragon roar, which leapt out behind. It was Rita Seeker. She was wearing acid green robe today. The quick coat, quill in her hand, blended perfectly against them. Congratulations, Harry, she said, beaming at him. I wonder if you could give me a quick word how you felt facing the dragon, how you feel now about the fairness of the scoring. Yea, you have a word, and Harry savagely goodbye said, and he set off back to the castle with Ron. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for next chapter. Till then, see ya. Bye bye.